Testing, one, two, three, testing, 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 testing. Testing, 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 testing. One click is for, so give me a test.
Check, check, check.
Okay, we'll get underway. Let me just check my mic here. Welcome, everyone, to our Friday night meeting. I'm going to go over our announcements first. Okay, the date has finally arrived that I've been telling you for 6 months. It's too late to enter now. But our first phone competition is next Friday. So it should be very, very interesting. We had a lot of entries to it. It's not part of our regular competition season. We were just seeing how much interest there was in phones. So basically, we'll see how that goes. That's next Friday will be our phone competition here at the clubhouse. Following that, the Friday after, May 10th, we'll have a Zoom presentation by John Scalera, and I've been on his website, very interesting. He does this talk a lot. It's the complete talk on bird photography. And he talks not so much about the setting things up, the equipment, this type of thing, but as he goes through his slides and his images, he'll tell us each one how he got to that image, what settings he used, things like that. So it's a good mixture of the artistic people at home. Are these pictures for the critique night things that you want advice on photoshopping or how to take the picture or whatnot? It's really any of those. We've had people who say, you know, I like this picture, but what could I do post-processing wise to, you know, what would you suggest to pick up this image or whatnot and do that? Others have images up there that say basically, but I just, you know, this doesn't look right. How would you have taken this shot? How would you have composed it or whatnot? So anything under that. So this isn't just a technical thing or whatnot. It's anything to do with the image at all as well. So anything you had questions on, fine. And we just discuss that and whatnot, go over it, and again, are able to actually do that up on the screen. Does that help there? Okay. End of the Year Awards, our CPS Annual End of the Year's Awards, May 24th. That is where for the competition season, our last competition season, the honors will be announced for the End of the Year Awards, best in each category, accumulated points award, best photographer. I will also be giving out the presidential awards, and there'll be service awards given, but most importantly, there will be cake and refreshments too. So that is worth it as a standalone. Our next SIG meeting, the Special Interest Group, which is the first Thursday of every month with Dave Bush, is coming up May 2nd. He's going to be doing studio and artificial lighting, everything from setups, camera settings, equipment. It should be an interesting evening. As you know, Dave has written, he is one of the most published authors on cameras in the United States as well. And upcoming field trips. Our favorite, we do this about twice a year, and it's always a favorite, Back to the Wild, the bird sanctuary, because there again, you'll have the eagles and the owls and everything. They have them like live out in the woods there. They have them on 7 to 10 foot tethers, but they're on the tree trunks and whatnot so that you can get up close and get the, get the eagle and whatnot and close. And now, with the AI and Photoshop, you could take that little thing off their foot and whatnot and, just tell people you were snuck up on them and got them in the wild. But it's a great opportunity to get up close to them. May 26th, there is going to be a field trip to Willett Iris Garden, which is part of Rockefeller Greenhouse. I looked on the internet, and these are irises. I am very poor on plants, but yes, I imagine you'll see things like that. So for all the plant lovers, again, that should be an interesting field trip. There's more on the website about that. Position needed, again, we are still looking for a chair of the competition committee. Anyone, again, will teach you how to do it. You get to meet a lot of interesting people. Just need some good organizational skills. Anyone interested, respond to the information tab of the website under volunteers as well, and we will get you more information. Tomorrow, I think, April 27th, Pixel Connection is having its annual spring demo day with special offers for CPS members. There'll be free sensor cleaning, giveaways, free classes. If you're interested in registering as a CPS member, just go onto our website on the member portal, and you'll see the sign-up information and credentials there. So that again. And as always, our public meetings are live on our YouTube channel. So to get to that, on our homepage of the website, click the YouTube icon, which is there in the upper right. That will take you to the YouTube page, which is not the final landing page. Again, when you're at this page, it's counterintuitive, but click on Live there as well. And that takes you to our page where in date order, you'll have all of our presentations there as well. So that is our upcoming meetings. So tonight, as we get switched over, Dave, you'll switch us over there. Take your time. We are lucky enough to have Ted Stevens, who is going to talk with us on medical photography down from Akron. Ted, as we get your computer set up here, I'll have you come up and...
So good evening. My name's Ted Stevens,
Okay.
and I am a corporate photographer at Akron Children's Hospital in Akron, Ohio. Just so you know, any of the photos you see here, we have permission to use. They've been used on our Facebook or social media accounts or physicians' presentations or that sort of thing. So we do have permission for all of this. So just in case anybody's worried about HIPAA. I've been at the hospital for going on 31 years now. I started there out of college, and I went to college in Rochester, New York at Rochester Institute of Technology. I spent 4 years there, and my degree is in biomedical photographic communications. So it's sort of a all-encompassing degree that includes graphic design, medical terminology. We took biology, human biology classes, animal plant biology, medical terminology, anatomy and physiology. So we have a really nice understanding of what happens in the hospital. And when physicians approach us or nursing or whoever it may be or lab, we have some idea about what they are talking about. So no 2 days in the hospital are ever the same, ever. This image here is a spinal fusion surgery that I took a couple years ago. They were doing a story on this patient who came from the Ukraine. The patient lived in Cleveland, so, and she came here for this surgery. So the start of the day, this is one particular morning in the winter, when I used to carry my camera to and from work. I no longer do that. It's just, I'm 30 years in, and it's just kind of a long haul to carry that stuff from the parking decks and whatnot. So, but this was a particular winter morning that I was just walking in, and I looked over, and this was the view to the east. That's St. Bernard's Church there. So that kind of stuff happens quite frequently. We covered the eclipse a couple weeks ago. Akron was in the path of totality, so my family was there. So it was, I sort of did what I needed to do to get the assignment done, but I wanted to be in the moment more so than photograph the eclipse. So if being in the moment is important. So that's something everybody should remember, that the photograph sometimes just isn't worth it. Like if you're missing what's going on around you in life, the photograph can wait. There's a couple caveats to that. So this is a typical thing that we've designed. So they had these new ways of filling these nasogastric tubes. And so they needed an instruction manual for it. So we worked closely with our nursing representatives, and this is what we came up with. I did all the photography and all the design on it, and they inputted all the verbiage and the text for it. So this probably took a good month to complete by the time it went through all its different stages of approval. So here's another one. These first three are kind of boring, but they just sort of show another piece of the job that we do. Our central lab needed pictures of the specimen collection tubes for bloods. So we came up with this deal where the tubes were coated by the tops of the tubes. So this is a gray top tube, and they have dots. So this was the first piece of it. And then this monstrosity is the second piece, which tells you what test goes with what tube and what tube you need to draw. So our team is really involved with this sort of stuff, and we're looked upon to help solve problems. So as far as medical photography goes, does anybody know what this is? So these are my son's retinas, actually. One part of our job that is not so fun is child abuse. My son was not abused, so he may argue differently, but we take photos of the retinas of the eye for shaken baby syndrome. So we just got this new camera, and he happened to be at work one day, so he got pulled in and photographed. So this would be done bedside in the pediatric intensive care unit. We'd get a call, and we'd go up there, and they would put speculums in the eye, and we would take the photos. And the photos for that sort of thing are used in court cases, and sometimes they're used for documentation to see, well, is it getting better 2 weeks from now, or is it getting worse? So there's that sort of thing. We have been called to court 2 or 3 times over my 30 years, which I think is kind of impressive because we've done hundreds of child abuse photos. So they respect what we do, and what we show them in the photos is actually what was going on. So those photos, there was no editing whatsoever. They were just raw photos from the camera, and we give them to the prosecutor. So Oh, too fast here. Hold on. So I guess I let that one out of the bag. So if you if you have a weak stomach, you should look away. So this is an intraoperative photo. You see here, this is a kidney on this side here, and they had just gotten this new technology. It was an argon catheter device. That's still not right. I stumble on it all the time. But it uses argon gas, and that for solid organs, and they needed to show how the argon came out and would cauterize the surface of the organ. So this was the image that I got out of that, and this image is the better part of 20-some years old. This was the first iteration of digital cameras that we got at the hospital. The hospital, I've seen huge progress in the technology field. When I started there, we had 2 dark rooms. We had a black and white print dark room with a refrigerator for the office in it, which was kind of weird because people used to come in to get lunches and expose paper all the time because they opened the door on the fridge, until we got a safe light in the fridge, so that fixed that. And then we had an E6 dark room in which we processed E6 film, which was sort of our lifeblood. Everything was shot on slides, everything. We probably averaged 300 slides a day, year in, year out. And that included slides for PowerPoint presentation, which wasn't really PowerPoint, it was just a slide tray full of PowerPoint slides. So that has changed greatly. Those dark rooms are long gone. We now sit in another sort of dark room, which is our office, with 2 monitors in front of us, and sometimes I think that's more taxing on the person than it actually being in a physical dark room with the smell of chemistry and the darkness at times. So, are we not working here? Okay. So there's another there are 2 of us at Akron Children's that do the same job. So we get called up to surgery, and we are standing literally right next to the surgeon most of the time. And these are sort of the images that we get. I can't remember exactly what this one was for, but I do remember. It was a new 3D device that they use for brain. This is a neurosurgery. And this is the screen up here is what the surgeons are looking at, and they have 3D glasses on, so we needed to show that in an effective way. So this picture was probably one of the only photos of me that exists at the hospital on the job, and I'm 220 feet off the ground on a tower crane. We got summoned to climb the tower crane and do a story on the tower crane operator and the new software that a French company had designed to keep the 2 tower cranes from hitting each other physically. So we climbed up that 220 feet twice, and it was a taxing climb. My partner there has a GoPro on his chest, and when we reviewed the images and the video footage from it, you could hear his heartbeat go from nothing to the top of the tower crane, where it was just full on, just like you could hear a real steady heartbeat. It was kind of funny to hear. And we lugged 20 pounds of equipment up with us, and it was just a straight climb up. So that's the sort of thing we do. These are some of the images from the top one and the bottom one are the 2 images from the top that I chose to use. to illustrate what we were doing. So we've made friends with the construction folks there, so we're always in and amongst the construction happenings at the hospital. We've gone through safety training classes there. That's probably one of my favorite pieces of it because, like I said, I've been there for 30 years. I know what was there. I know, what was there 2 iterations of building ago. So it's interesting to see things change. This was a project, my friend Tom here, who is the construction foreman, I've got to know him really well. He approached me and said, hey, we want to do this picture of lunch on a beam. Everybody knows this famous photo from New York City. There were some roadblocks to that image. Number one, they wouldn't let me out on the high steel. I don't think anybody would appreciate that either, my wife being one of them. So we worked for about 2 weeks and came up with this solution. So the actual construction of the building they're doing is in front of this building, or in front of this beam. So on the other side of it was all steel work. But they decided they could put these scaffolding on the roof and lay a beam across it. And that sufficed everybody for the safety issue. Now, how to get the photo without the rest of the background. So I was on a 10-foot ladder to shoot this, and then we had to figure out how to get the same angle, but there's a 3-foot parapet wall here. You can see it in the back there, without the parapet wall of just the rubber duck stadium that sits below this. And this is what we came up with. So obviously there's a lot of Photoshop on it. It took a couple weeks to, I think, get through it and get it done because it was just really taxing. We had posted it, and some of the comments were pretty funny on the construction site that says, well, you guys faked this photo. Well, yeah, we posted the original green screen photo with it. So, and we used the green screen up there just to help trim the feet and sort of the things that are dangling down out of the image. It made it that much easier. So a lot of my job is problem solving. I like to think that we get it right 99% of the time. The other thing we do is I get to zip around in a helicopter occasionally. I don't know if any of you like that, but that's a really neat part of my job. We will work closely with the folks in the transport department, and we have our own dedicated helicopter at Children's, which can be a bit hazardous at times. I was going up for one flight, and I was sitting behind the pilot in the back, and he pulled off the pad, and the lens fell off the front of my camera and hit the floor and just shattered. And he radioed to me, and he's like, I know that wasn't the bear. They call it Air Bear. He said, I know that wasn't the bear, but was that your lens? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm going to set it back down so we can clean this up. So he set it back down. We cleaned the mess up. I went and got a different lens and went about the assignment. But, of course, there's a lens that we had to send off for repair. We have a adult and pediatric burn center at our hospital that takes care of burn patients from the region. So we do a lot with burn education. I did not set this fire. This was a training fire for Akron Fire. So we have a lot of colleagues on the outside of the hospital that we work with, and they sort of collaborate with us to get images like this to use in their talks. This is I love this piece of my job because I just don't sit in one place and do the same thing over and over and over. It's totally different. Lighting's different all the time. And these are some of the images of, for social media that we've done. We had, is it Tristan McKenzie from the Guardians came to visit. He was playing, he was hurt, so he was recovering in Akron with the Rubber Ducks. And he had a friend on the Ducks, and he kept saying, I just want to go visit some kids up at that hospital. And he finally had the chance, and he came in on a Saturday morning, and he stayed for like 2.5 or 3 hours. But it's amazing to see what these individuals, and I am not personally a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but Jerome Bettis came to visit kids, and he stayed 2.5 hours. He was supposed to be there for half an hour, and he told his handlers that he wasn't leaving until everybody that wanted seen was seen. So it's nice to see the humanity in these superstars. And so this is a rehab department. We're all over the place. This is a child who has dialysis and is in need of a kidney. So we cover just about everything there is to cover. So Haiti was, this is my friend Jeff Kemp. He's a retired physician, emergency room physician, and a big mentor of mine. He had been bugging me for years to go overseas with him. His passion is sort of global health. And I just kept refusing, mainly because I needed like half a dozen shots to go, and I'm petrified of needles. So, the earthquake happened in Haiti in 2010, I believe, and Jeff and another physician, John Pope, who is an intensivist, went down there and spent a month down there on the ground right after the earthquake. And he came back and he's like, you need to go. You need to help tell this story. And I was leery about it, and then finally gave in and got my load of immunizations to go. So this is Jeff in the ER down in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince. As many of you know, if you're following the news events lately, Haiti is quite a mess right now. A lot of violence and political unrest. And was that way after the earthquake for a while, and then it seemed to settle down, and then it's just gotten worse. But Jeff employed me to go down there, and I took 2 weeks of vacation and went down with him for 2 weeks. And this was my first visit. And it was life-changing. So if you have the opportunity to do something that you think might be life-changing, by all means, do it. This was one of the first people I saw in Haiti. We got there on like a Tuesday night, and it was late, and the next day we went over and started walking around the hospital and getting oriented to the hospital. This little girl's name is Lovely, which is kind of fitting. She's a 12-year-old Haitian kiddo, and she has what is known as a VSD. It's a cardiac condition that shunts blood from one side of the heart to the other and then pushes it into the lungs. So basically, she was suffering from cardiac or pulmonary hypotension, correct? I'm asking the cardiologist here. And there was no fix for it. A child like this would be fixed in the United States within the first 2 months of birth. So she's 12 years old and has this tremendous pressure going to her lungs. So even if they took her and fixed her lungs, she would need a lung transplant as well. So we always ask permission when we take these photos. We approached Mom, and she said, by all means. And so this was the image that I came up with. There's no flash, nothing. It's just the light that was coming through the window and just her. We saw her about 3 days later, and I didn't put the photo in there, and I should have, but, and they walked past us in the hall, and I didn't recognize her. She was dressed in a yellow frilly dress. It was like her Sunday best, if you will. And Mom was dressed to the hill as well, and they were going home. But she looked like a different kid, even though she was still dying. She looked, there was something different about her. And they stopped us and wanted to see the photos on the camera, so we showed them. And we told Mom that we would get her copies, because we were coming back in 6 months, I think. So we got copies of these photos, and we took photos of her and Mom as well, and we sent them back down there. There was another trip within 2 months, so we had some colleagues take them, and they got transported to their home and gave them to Mom. Lovely had passed away about a week and a half after this photo was taken. But that just goes to show the disparity in sort of healthcare. And you come back to the United States after a trip to Haiti and you realize that, yeah, things might not be all that great here, but they're not like they are in Haiti. And this is just a typical Haitian walking down the side of the street. You see them everywhere. Just a slice of Haitian life. So this photo is interesting. We were down there on Halloween, over Halloween, and this is the day after Halloween. I think is it All Saints Day or All Souls Day? I can't remember. All Saints Day. And on All Saints Day, the rent is due at the cemetery. And if the rent is not paid at the cemetery, your remains are taken out and thrown on the street. So that's not, the remains are being taken out here, but they were not thrown on the street. We have partnered with a hospital in Port-au-Prince called St. Damien Hospital, Pediatric Hospital. It's the only one in Haiti. And the person that oversees that hospital is a Catholic priest, as well as a physician. His name is Father Rick Frechette. So if you want some good reads and some interesting viewpoints, he has a couple books out there that are fascinating. So he gave a homily at the service one morning and said that, you know, if you were coming into Port-au-Prince Airport and you looked out your window, you could see this because the airport's like literally right on the other side. And he believed everybody deserves a dignified burial. So he collected all the remains, and then they took them back to the hospital. Had like a church attached to it as well. Took them back to the church, and he would do a funeral and then take them out they had some property in the central plateau of Haiti, and he would take them out and bury them there. And that speaks to the dignity of life. Like he just believed that these people they lived a hard life, they deserved better than to be thrown in the streets and left there. So this was the image. He encouraged me to go to the cemetery, and I'm glad that I did because it's always in my mind. And you can see they were putting the remains in body bags here, and they had flatbed trucks just full. So this is Father Rick here, and every morning there was a mass, and the mass usually was a combination of mass and funeral. So they're 2 adult bodies here, and then there were like 4 neonate bodies here. And I was there one morning, and I looked through, and these 3 beams of light were coming through while he was doing this. And I snapped the photo, and this is what we ended up with. So this image really stays with me for a lot of reasons. There's another Haitian picture. If any of you have any questions, please, I really don't like speaking in public, but if you have questions, you can ask. I don't mind. So this is a fishing boat in an area of Haiti called Cité Soleil. Cité Soleil is 8 square miles, and it is inhabited by 500,000 people in 8 square miles. And the other little thing about Cité Soleil is it is built on top of a garbage dump. And this is all garbage from the dump that gets eroded by the seawater and drug out to sea every morning, or every day, every morning, every night. But people live here. And when I first gave this photo to some colleagues of mine, they were like, "Oh, that's a beautiful scene on the beach." And I'm like, "Well, you need to look closer. Like it's not what it appears to be." So the human condition in Haiti is just, it's amazing how people can live in this sort of habitat. The other piece of that is the people that we dealt with in Haiti were welcoming beyond all welcome. We had an interpreter who we have become good friends with, and we know his mom and dad and his brothers and sisters. And this trip, his mom and dad invited us over for lunch. And the average Haitian earns about $1.25 a day. So they invited us for lunch. We went over. I'd been in Haiti for almost 2 weeks at that point. I had never seen any ice in Haiti whatsoever. His dad had 3 5-gallon buckets full of beer, wine, water, pop, and it was all on ice. And it was all because we were coming to visit them. So what they had, they opened their doors and gave it to us. And it was really nice that people from all over just sort of swept down because they knew the Americans were there, and they came and told stories, and it was just nice to be a part of. And I have photographs of that, so my job is just sort of like a fly on the wall, although I was part of the deal, but it's nice to see that. There was another time we went to their house, and our friend's name is Denzo. His mother knew that we liked this particular Haitian dish. It's called soup jamu, and it has like egg dumplings in it and all sorts of vegetables. Well, we went there. Denzo's like, "Come on, you guys have to come over to my parents' house. They want you to come over." And they didn't tell us why, but we went, and they sat us all down, and his mom brings out this huge helping of the soup jamu. And so we asked Denzo, like, "Do you have this like once a week or like once a month?" And he's like, "No, traditionally we just have it once a year, and it's on New Year's Day." He's like, "But my mom decided that since you guys really like this and you've done so much here, she was going to make it for you." So that's the kind of openness and caring and warmness that the people of Haiti have. That's truly who they are. And this is a little boy in that same area of Cité Soleil. And I sort of got in trouble for going to Cité Soleil. My wife found out through other people in our group that I had gone. And it's the biggest, if you look on Wikipedia, it says it's the biggest slum in the Western Hemisphere. So she was a little bit rattled about it, but we were there, and there's a lot of gang warfare going on there right now, so it's not a very safe place. But this was just a little kid outside one of there's a compound behind this wall, and his parents were there and asked if we could take his picture, so this was the image we got. So this is this is the last of my Haitian kiddos. This little kid's name is Ellie, and the hospital let us bring 2 kids a year back for cardiac surgery. And this was the first kid that Akron Children's had ever done that sort of exchange of surgery on. And we were covering it for a story, and he was making faces, and my good friend Kristen there, who is a physician assistant in the heart center, was just like dying laughing. So this sort of became our spokes picture for like kids getting surgery here. This was like 3 days after cardiac surgery. And it's amazing to see how these kids just bounce back and how full of life they are. All kids really do that. I mean, but these Haitian kids have something special about them. I mean, they're on the doorstep and they're just sort of knocking, but they get fixed and they're on their way. And we've seen a lot of good things become of this. So, I guess this is really why I'm here. This is part of my job that I really love doing, which is a weird sort of term, but I feel everybody in the hospital situation has something they can give the patient, whether it's the physician or the physical therapist or the nurse or whoever it may be. The only thing I can give them is an image of their child. And this is the bereavement part of my job. So my colleague and I are part of the palliative care team at the hospital. And we get called in often for sick or dying children. And usually it's the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, for kids that are born way early. But sometimes it's up in the oncology unit, as with my friend Peter here. Peter was kind of a different story. We met Peter when he was pretty young. And here he is with, I think it's Kyle Kizek. He's an IndyCar driver that came to visit. And Peter was up on the floor for some treatments. And I met him. And Peter was a phenomenal little kid. He was a 12-year-old, but he had the soul of a 50-year-old. Like he was just, he's been around this planet, I think, before. And I think he was put here to teach us something. And we had the privilege of taking his photo throughout his treatment. This was early on, and he had a good prognosis at this point. So we have a lot of just day-to-day life. We have pictures of Peter playing a trumpet in the halls in the hospital, which some of the nursing staff was a little bit uproared about, but everybody was kind of laughing about it. But Peter was just, we saw him all the time. I struck up sort of a friendship with his family and him. He loved Legos, and he loved the Beatles, which for a kid that age is kind of weird. But and those are two of my big interests as well. So we covered Peter in all kinds of things. This particular photo is a school teacher from the hospital. Her name's Carla, and she would go into Peter's room when he was admitted every day and teach school. So he would have to do homework assignments, which he would give Carla a hard time about, but nonetheless, they had a great relationship, and we covered that, in one means or another. This was a story about Carla and the school teacher that we have in place that helps these kids. These were for National Lego Day. And Peter loved Legos and had tons of Legos. So we did these. This is Peter and his brother. I think this was right after his first relapse. So we have a studio at the hospital. We don't use it all that often. We don't use it as much as we used to. But when the need comes, we can take patients down there. Even if they're in a hospital bed, the studio door will fit a full hospital bed through there. And we can do whatever they need. So we've done senior portraits down there. We've done sort of wedding ceremonies, wedding pictures down there. Anything anybody needs, we will cover it. And this is Peter and his brother again. And it just, he was comfortable enough, they were comfortable enough with me to let that side of their personality out. And his whole family was like this. So I have an image of his mom sticking her tongue in his ear and him sticking his tongue in his brother's ear, and then his brother sticking his tongue in his dad's ear. So, like, great family, and it was always very, very heartwarming when we got to see them. In these kinds of moments. So I've learned over the years that you never just set the camera down. You just always have it up and at the ready. And sometimes you get lucky and get this sort of image. So here's Peter's mom and dad up in the upper left. And they're all big Beatles fans, as you can see by their shirts. Peter was the walrus. And then down below are Peter's grandparents on both sides. These are his mom's parents over here, and his dad's parents. Now, Peter's dad is from Germany, and so about once a year, his grandparents from Germany would fly in. And whenever they would come in, we would take them down to the studio and get some nice photos. And often the whole family was just goofing around, so these are sort of the images we got with it. And I believe that his family treasures these for what they are and what they remind them of. Again, just another one of Peter. Shows sort of his lighter side of things, his Star Wars hat there. And this was just kind of a snap over the shoulder. Peter had gotten a hand bike, and his brother was always trying to get at Peter's electric wheelchair, always. So whenever the opportunity arose, Peter had another vehicle to basically operate, so his brother sat right in the wheelchair, and off they went down the path down behind the hospital. And sometimes, I put this image in there because about 3 months or 4 months before Peter passed away, we did a photo shoot for a new section of the building at the hospital. And we had a bunch of kids come out to a local park, and we photographed them playing, whether it be catch or soccer or whatever it may be, or just running. And Peter was part of that crew. But somehow I didn't see this photo until after he passed. And I was sort of cleaning up photos and going through, and I couldn't believe that I had missed this. And it was almost like he had sent it to me somehow, but it was there the whole time. I just overlooked it. So we sent it to the parents, to Peter's mom and dad, and they were like floored that we had gotten this image of him. So about 3 or 4 days before he passed, I did go to Peter's home, and his family from Germany was here, including his dad's sister and brother-in-law, and all of Mom's family was there, and we got some pictures of Peter with all of them, and then he passed away like 3 or 4 days later, which was really sad. But I still, Peter's mom texts me once in a while, or I'll text her on Peter's birthday, or her birthday, or, just, it's nice to see the humanity that people have for one another on this side of the job. So this is Sophia. I have a really special relationship with Mom there. Her name is Lori. She's one of my friends that works at the hospital, one of my colleagues. She's a social worker. Her and her husband, she got pregnant with her first child, and it was, everybody was excited. We had a group of friends that rallied around her. Everything was going great. We have so many goofy photos of her in the studio because we'd go down at lunch and just goof around for 20 minutes, taking photos. So we have a bunch of pregnancy photos of her. And then, I think, was it 2 days before Sophie was due, the movement stopped. And so there had been a cord accident. And so she delivered Sophie, and Sophie was in the NICU for a couple weeks, and then died on, is it Valentine's Day? I'm a little fuzzy with the details. This was a very hard thing for me to do, but it was the only thing I could do for my friend. And I had worried about her a lot because she was always this bubbly person, and for selfish reasons, I was afraid I was never going to see that again. So Lori sort of skirted around, and I sort of stayed in the background, which is my job. But as a friend, I would text her and say, hey, do you need anything? Do you want me to come take photos? Whatever you need. Well, she didn't want to get me upset about what was going on. So she didn't feel like she could ask me. And that was relayed to me, and so I went down and saw her and said, listen, this is the only thing I can do for you. I'm going to do it for you. I do it for everybody. I'm going to do it for you. So she agreed. This is probably one of the only photos that I've ever retouched like this. Sophie had an endotracheal tube when this photo was taken, but Lori wanted it taken out. She just wanted a nice photo of her daughter and her. And I can remember as clear as day, we took this in the NICU. It was just a black background, a singular light, and I think we had a little reflector on the side, but that was it. And it was right near the bedside. And this is what we came up with. But I remember looking through the viewfinder, and I just sort of would not snap photos consistently. I would just sort of wait for moments. And I looked through, and I saw her face do this, and that little smile come up. And it was kind of reassuring for me that she was going to make it through this ordeal. So we do a lot of hands and feet photos with the parents or grandparents or siblings. I think it's very powerful and very meaningful to the families. And these are all done in the NICU. So that's another one a couple minutes after that other one was taken. And you can see the tube in the photo there. I'm just going to go back a couple. So the photo here was taken at their home. They were transported back to their home, and I went to their home to get some other photos. And this is just one of the photos that I took. Our transport team is wonderful, and so is our palliative team. They asked Lori, like, what did they want to do with her? And one of Lori's things was she wanted to take Sophie down the basement because they had just done a playroom for her down there. And she wanted to take her down there because that was her playroom. So they did that. And this one was in Sophie's bedroom. And I think it's a very powerful image. And I know that Lori holds these images near to her. So if you're interested, you can look up Lori Dent. She has a book that she wrote about her ordeal. And it's phenomenal, and it's raw, and it's just sort of her writings. She would write incessantly every day about what was going on. And she used many of these photos in the book. Let me go back here. So this is just another one. And the other thing she wanted was a bare bottom photo of her daughter, holding her daughter like this. So that was important, and we took care of it. So anything the parents want that we can accomplish, we will accomplish it. And this is after she was extubated. And this was in her home. So my daughter said, "Oh God." Oh. So the last part of this is just what I like to do. I don't take as many photos as I used to. The camera sort of stays. We went to Vegas before Christmas, and I took a DSLR with me, and it sat in the room all for about 45 minutes the one day I took it out. It's just so much nicer to have that iPhone in your pocket on vacation, and you can if it's bright, you can more or less do nice things with it. Darkness is another thing with the iPhones, but it's just easier to carry that with you now than a big camera with a big lens on it. So this is a picture of my daughter jumping off a dock at Portage Lakes. These were a couple images of the Guardians Bridge, the same bridge, just from two views and two different times a year. This one was taken, I was hanging out a car window during a rainstorm, going down the road. I was up in Cleveland. We had some patients that were supposed to toss out the first pitch at the Indians back then game. And it got rained out, so we ended up going over across the way to a restaurant, And then on the way back, I saw this image sort of pop out of my corner of my eye, and I stuck the camera out the window and myself, and as I was driving, my friend was driving by, I shot this image. So I thought it was a pretty nice image for just sort of going down the road at 35 miles an hour. The other one is taken from below that viewpoint, and it was during the winter a few years back. And I like them as a paired sort of couple of photos. The signs are both visually apparent in both of them. The light posts, I just like sort of the dynamic of it. I'm a big railroad fan, so I've, much to my family's chagrin, I have model trains. I'll admit it. So anything with trains fascinates me. This is just one of the bridges up in Cleveland. And down at the Cauga Valley National Park. And they will yell at you if you get too close, so.
Train people your way.
Both. So this, I like this image. Some people have a hard time trying to figure out what it is. I shot this image in college, and it was done on 35 millimeter film and then scanned over. So what this is just the inside of a red pepper up close. And those are the seeds on the side of the red pepper. So my college career taught me just always be looking at things and just looking for different ways of viewing them. That was the real takeaway from 4 years at Rochester. And lastly, there's my family. I think it's the only photo we have of the family, but and that's it.
That is, I don't even know what to say. That is tremendous. That is a very, very difficult job. It's such an important one. And really, really moving. So my hat's off to you. I mean, we have any questions from anyone in the audience? Yep. Let me give you the mic so the people at home can hear.
I'm curious in general what kind of lenses, camera, that sort of thing you use, but more specifically also like the one with, I think it was a kidney and surgery. You know, was that a macro where you were really close, or was that from a distance?
So I have 4 lenses that I typically, so we've run every iteration of the D series Nikon camera. So the D1, the 2, the 3, the 4. I think we had the 5 as well. So we are now on to the Z series of camera, and we have the Z9s, which is their top of the line. And it's a great camera. It's a bit, I'm getting on in my years, and it's a bit heavy, but it's still, nonetheless, it's a good camera. And if you're shooting day in, day out, that's like, I beat up on my gear. So that, I have a 7 II as well, the Z7, and I broke that thing within 3 months of having it. It just, the one button on the back to get the display to work fell off. So we use the Z camera, and we generally hang on to those for about 5 years. As far as lenses go, it's all Nikon glass. I have a 14 to 24, a 24 to 70, which is probably my main lens that I use 95, 98% of the time. It's a workhorse of a lens. You can do a lot with it. And these are all the 2.8 lenses. And then we have a 70 to 200 2.8. We also have a 300 2.8, which we don't really have much call for it, but we use it occasionally. It's a nice lens. The surgical photo was taken with a 60 macro, with a 60 micro Nikon. And it's a nice lens for that sort of stuff. It's a flat lens, so you don't get any curvature of the image with it. So, does that answer? And then we have the Nikon flash as well for it. So,
Now, when you went through all the D series and you had those lenses and you went to the Z series, did the hospital just buy you the adapter or did they get you Z lenses?
I don't know if I should say this on. So both.
That's the hospital I want to work for.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, well, to be fair, the lenses that we used with the D series were 15 years old, and they had been through they'd been rained on, they'd been snowed on, they'd been dropped in mud, they'd been, anything you name it has happened to it. We had just got, I think it was the D3 when we went to Haiti, when I went to Haiti the first time. And I made it through 2 weeks of that trip. And the hospital has an orphanage in the mountains of Haiti, and the place is called Kenskoff. And it's about at 5,000 feet of elevation, and Haiti, Port-au-Prince is sea level. So number one, it's a lot cooler up there. You go from 98 degrees and 100% humidity to 55, 60 degrees and, relatively little humidity. So I was just in awe when I got there because Haiti is just kind of not a place that trees like to live, number one. But up there in the mountains, there were trees galore. It was just gorgeous. And I was too busy paying attention to what was in front of me and not paying attention to where my feet were going. And I stepped on a concrete path that a stream had come over and had moss on it. And I went head over heels and landed on my camera bag and broke my 70-200 and my 24-70. So I was stuck for 3 days on that trip with a 60 millimeter lens. So you should always pay attention to where you're walking if you can. But so those lenses have been used over and over and over, and there's not much life left in them. So
That's a good excuse as any to get a new,
I'll stand by that one.
a new lens. Let me-
Amazing presentation. I was curious, going back to, you said your major in college was this and prepared you for it. Was this a popular major? Does it still exist, or how did you happen upon it?
So my graduating class was 10 people. So and RIT is a pretty big school. I mean, they're pretty well known for photography. I started off in just general photography, and it just was lacking something. It was mainly the science part. Although everybody in the photography programs up there has to take a photo science class, which is really, really difficult. It gets into physics of lenses, and back then it was developers and film and you name it, we did it. Color theory. So I don't know. I felt the program prepared me for what I do. I mean, the program is what I do. So.
out of curiosity, in the operating room, whatnot, any problem with sterility? You have to keep your distance with your camera?
So we've been schooled by some hard knocks nurses over the years. No offense to them. They were very good guides at what they were telling you to do, but they made it relevant that you don't touch anything that's blue in the OR. So if you're ever in an OR, never touch anything blue. So we either wear scrubs, surgical scrubs, or a lot of times we'll just wear a bunny suit or a jumpsuit. It's like just a sort of a cheap fabric suit that zips up. And the only thing that's sterile is the field. Everything else is clean. So, you know, we wash our hands, but we'll lean over a surgical field. We just won't touch the drape or the field itself. So
No problem focusing with you wear a mask?
I do wear a mask. Yeah,
and that's-
sometimes
I was-
with the glasses it sort of fogs up, but it's, you know, it's just things you get used to. You sort of know how to breathe or when not to breathe or how to hold your breath and focus and look through. Some of the surgeries can get quite warm as well, so that's the other piece of it.
In the operating rooms,
In the operating rooms and around there too, what ISO are you usually shooting up at?
So it depends. That image there was probably, I bet you, at 1600, and it was stopped down to probably f8 or 11. That surgical field photo. The surgical field is quite bright. Believe it or not, the surgical lights are really high intensity lights. And the problem more often than not is just getting the ISO down enough to get, you know, so it's not overexposed. So, and occasionally we'll use flash in there depending on what it is. So if it's something deep in the surgical field, we'll use a ring light on the end of the lens just to get that light down in. So,
Yeah, there was another question here?
That beautiful portrait of Lovely that you had you built up a rapport with her, or how did you work that? Because that's really beautiful.
so we walked in and we had another friend who is a priest that was with us, and he went over and did a blessing. He had found out what was going on with her, and he may have been there a little bit earlier than us, and he did a blessing for her, for Mom, and he introduced us to Mom. So we made a connection through Mom. And Lovely didn't really say much or do much, obviously. She was just sitting on that chair sort of hunched over. I don't know what the particular cause, her lungs were failing, basically. And she was having trouble breathing. So we built up as much of a rapport as we could. But it was interesting. They knew who we were when they saw us a couple days later when they were going home. So, and that's a big part of our job is building up rapport with people. So we don't, our bereavement, those two bereavement photos or things there were special sort of deals. And I know those families very well. And the Plain Dealer did a story several months ago on me. And that they reached out, we gave them the names, and they reached out, and the families, my friend Lori and Peter's parents, were more than happy to share those and let us share them with you guys. Otherwise, those photos go into a lockbox on our network, where only the two photographers at the hospital have access to them. So we keep those there indefinitely. We've had instances where, say, a house caught on fire and they lost everything. But if they come to us, and they have before, we can reprint those and give them, we tend to give them a bunch of prints and some jump drives with the digital images on them. So they can retrieve those, or you know, parents might split and one parent has the photos and the other wants them. So we do that all the time. So.
Another question?
With the palliative care group and the bereavement photos, I was curious, how is the offer of your services made, and at what point, by whom, and especially at times where it's unpredictable, it's sudden, it's not a long-term rapport like you've had with other patients?
That's a great question. So it can come in a variety of different ways. The palliative team is made up of social workers, child life workers, physicians, nurses, chaplains. So any one of those members will approach the family, and it's usually one of our social workers who does it, and I need to talk a minute about her because she's a special person in my life. Her name is Nancy Karst, and she's a social worker. She's getting ready to retire at the hospital, but between Nancy Karst and a person named Jane Nichols at the hospital, who was there when I first started, they both approached me within 6 months of me starting and say, hey, would you mind doing some photos for these families? And I sort of asked what they were, and they told me, and I said, well, yeah, if that's important, then we should do it. So they've been big champions of mine, and Jane has passed away several years ago, but Nancy's still there. So they sort of look at me and value what we do, me and my colleague, because we both do this for families. And it might not even come from them. It may come from a bedside NICU nurse, or we go over to the adult hospitals occasionally for deliveries. So I've seen 7 babies delivered at the hospital over my career. And so we see everything from birth until end of life. And it's a privilege to be part of that. Like, we don't take it lightly. I mean, those are things that people invite you in to see, and it's kind of a very privileged spot you're in. And we hold that dear to us, and we protect that privacy and those things that we do for those families with every shred we have. So, does that answer it?
Another question?
So how is your position supported? Is there a user fee for certain departments, or
Oh.
in certain cases you charge
So-
a client or sitting fee?
So, no, we charge nothing. It's all in our budget. We go through more Epson paper. We have a monthly delivery of Epson paper. We probably buy, I don't know, 20 or 30, 50 packs of Epson glossy photo paper a month. And it's all part of our service, and we charge nobody for anything. So none of these families that we serve get charged for it. The other thing is a thank you to the families that will be we're part of the sort of publicity photos we do. We also give them copies of the photos. We print them and send them in the mail to them. So we make sure that we don't leave anybody without something to take away from and ability to pay shouldn't be a hindrance to getting photos of your child.
In your position, in other hospitals, is it the same, do they have the same capabilities?
So I don't know.
You do.
That's a great question. I don't know. I've been at Children's for 30 years, and Akron, I think Akron General had or has a photographer. Not sort of like patient stuff, but they have a photographer. And I know SUMA had a photographer at one point. They had a whole department. So our department consists of 2 photographers / graphic designers. We have 1 video guy that strictly does video. And then we have another person that does graphic design and video. So the 4 of us do all that work.
And you don't know whether the other hospitals
Yeah,
have
I can't answer that. I don't. I we sort of live in a bubble over children's. We don't, I don't think there are like organizations like this for medical photography people. So,
Mariah?
Yeah, I just have a question. From everything I heard, you're pretty emotionally connected to your job and to the people. Has that taken a toll in any way?
I'm sure if you ask my family, I'm sure I've come home down in the dumps at times, and it has to. And the other thing is, if it isn't eliciting a response from you, then you're probably not doing it for the right reasons. So
I mean, that's been really fun to hear. I mean, it is really heartwarming to hear that presentation. That's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah, it's taxing at times. And we average probably 2 to 3 bereavements a month. So that's a lot. So last year, I think it was upwards of 30 families that we had helped last year. So.
Any other questions? Yep.
Was curious in looking at the range of photos in the hospital, rough estimate, how often are you using available light versus artificial in a patient room in an open setting?
So I'm
I
sort of
saw
like,
some of each.
yeah, so I'm like the wind in that respect. There will be weeks that I won't take the flash off the camera because I like what it's doing. And then all of a sudden something will change. And I'm like, oh, I just don't like I don't like artificial light. I like natural light whenever I can find it. Sometimes it's harder to find in the hospital. But it's probably a 50-50 cut. Yeah. And there's so many different lighting colors in the hospital, and it's a children's hospital, so things are bright, and there are orange walls that can throw funky reflections and funky color casts on things, and green walls and blue walls, and like just when you think you have it down, it changes on you. So.
Can you speak just a bit to your experience of both being an insider and maybe a little bit of an outsider come 2020, 2021 with COVID?
Yeah, so COVID was interesting. So that March, we were all in the office, and I think it was right around St. Patrick's Day, our vice president came in and said, get what you need to do your job and take it home. So we cleared off our desks, took our computers home, and worked. I worked from home for about 4 months, and then I couldn't take it anymore. I need to be in the hospital. I can't. And my colleagues and I are lucky because we all have individual offices that have locking doors just because of the nature of our work and the sensitivity of it. So we're all in individual offices. So I went back and worked. I've been working since about 6 months into COVID every day at the hospital. It was really difficult when they would give me an assignment because everybody had to wear a mask. And I came to realize that if you don't smile, your eyes show it. Like it really focused in on the eyes. And I would tease some of my colleagues that I'd have to take group photos of or whatever. And they'd be like, why do I have to smile? I've got this mask on. I'm like, well, you kind of look like a psycho killer if you don't. So you need to smile so your eyes have some expression in them. And it was really difficult with the masks, for not to mention fogging up, glasses and whatnot. I mean, it became a routine, so got used to it, but I'm glad that it's gone.
Any other questions?
I don't know.
Can you talk to us about how you take pictures of your own children and how that process works?
It doesn't. I yell at my children when they were little. And they go into the studio, and my son would say something like, "I'm not sitting next to her because she smells like garlic," or, and then I would get angry and yell at them both, and then they would have red eyes in the photo, and because they were crying, and I'm like, well, and she's like, "How can you yell at them? Do you yell at your other?" I'm like, "They're not my kids." Like, it's different when they're your kids. So. Yeah, so I was like, if you want to go to JCPenney, I'm fine with that.
Good. Any other questions? Yes, Ted, we can't thank you enough for this. It was a very moving presentation, uplifting too, and my hat's off to you. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.